back on late in the first quarter, and he kicks another. Late in the second.
Feeds it wide to O'Driscoll, puts the hammer down, has a bounce, runs to 50, drives it long. Epic!
Wow. The kick in the Darling direction, hands to it, lost it, still going. Kennedy for number 8!
Oh, now,
Hello, I'm Damian Barrett. Welcome to Access All Areas. We are here thanks to Crypto.com. The Blues were 8-2 after 10 matches. With 2 games remaining, Matthew Lloyd, have you got them in the 8?
Hey, Dame, I'd like them to make it because of the season that they've had, but I think they're in serious trouble. I think the Doggies don't deserve to make it either, but I think with their run home, I think they win their last 2, and I think the Blues lose their last 2 and are in serious trouble. They've got massive concerns. Their midfield got belted at the centre clearance 24-8 yesterday, and that's normally their strong suit, but I think they lose their last 2. The Dogs win their last 2. And I think they miss out on percentage.
So you've got a Tigers, Bulldogs 7th and 8th position there.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how that won't be the case on what the Blues have been producing recently, Lord. I know they had an 8-goal last quarter to make things interesting against the Brisbane team yesterday at the Gabba. But when this game was there to be won, when the pressure was at its absolute highest and when the big names had to stand up, it was all Brisbane.
Yeah, it was 4 goals, 6-1 behind in the first quarter, 21 inside 50s to 8.
And we're just highlighting some poor disposal here from Carlton. Setterfield, Wiedering, McGovern, Sarge. You'll see some pretty bad mistakes here.
Yeah, and their defence is really poor as well. So when they get opened up and they turn the footy over, like that's McGovern kicking it into the central corridor. You call that turnover territory, where Brisbane just are off to the races when you're just hacking the ball really with no thought, which McGovern did just there. So yeah, they were picked apart by a side. Look at this. Sard, that's a lazy disposal. Brisbane are the most dynamic forward line in the comp. They're the number 1 scoring team, and they just made them pay.
They did. The dynamic play of the Lions, Lord, it was across the ground. They were on, weren't they? And it was important for them to make the statement that they did make. But all their big names stood up in a way that I think will hearten anyone connected with this club from a premiership perspective.
I don't think they defend as well as they need to win a premiership, but this is something that might take them to a grand final because of what they can do in attack. They've got so many options forward. Danaher just plays his part, Hipwood plays his part, but Bailey bobbed up yesterday and was a superstar. We know what Zorko can do. Charlie Cameron, McStay had a much better game yesterday, but that's Brisbane. They were their best guy, a super player. But my concerns for Carlton, just on them, I thought without Kennedy and Hewitt, and maybe Cripps will be out, we'll talk about that shortly. O'Brien, Setterfield, Cottrell, Dow, Nunes, Jack Martin, plus Motlop, Owies, Durden, they suddenly become like a battling team again. A lot of Dower, just honest blokes who just don't really give you too much.
Some of those names you just mentioned, though, they look good, though, in a good team when they were 8-2 after 10 rounds. So Michael Voss can still get this together, but the runway is getting short now, isn't it?
Need a lot more from Chera, who hasn't had the season they would have hoped for. But and De Koning in the ruck has come right back to the field as well.
He has.
Pitnet didn't play, so they're not in form at the most important time of the season.
And they may have to get through maybe the remaining 2 matches without their captain and someone who's going to be prominent in Brownlow medal voting for this incident that Paddy Cripps had on Calamarchi. Now, Lordo, as we speak, we're still many hours away from the match review office giving its adjudication on that, and this is all that matters on this. But we know that if you choose to act in a way that causes damage to a player, and the damage was significant, Calamarchi was taken out of the game because of it.
Yeah, he didn't make contact with the ball. He jumped off the ground. He knocked a player out. I don't think we see him again this year.
In the home and away season, or even a final if they make it?
Maybe even the first
You're talking 3 weeks, potentially.
Yes.
It's hard to disagree, and we'll have a result on that at some stage of the afternoon, again on afl.com.au. Hard to think there's been a better final game, certainly from a full forward auto, than Josh Kennedy's yesterday at Optus Stadium against Adelaide. 8 goals he added to his extraordinary career to finish with 723 in totality from 293 games.
We see yesterday, Curnow and Mackay aren't travelling that well at the moment, but this guy just has amazing craft. So he's not super quick, but his work rate and his movement off the ball is just as good as we've seen. Tommy Hawkins is similar. They work so well. They're powerful. So kicking.
Why is he retiring?
I know, it's interesting. They could have considered potentially saying just play 14 games for us next year. But I think with where they're at as a list, it's maybe the right time. And hopefully Oscar Allen gets back next year.
Great ceremony around it, wasn't it? And the lead up was great. Blink 182 blaring through the speakers there. The Crows hanging around. And I mean, he's right up there. Certainly in this third wave of West Coast Eagles premiership success, he's as big a name as anyone.
And
club.
just such a humble person too. He's been wonderful for the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah. Rory Laird played his 200th game and played well as he has for most of those 200 games, Lordo. And another important storyline out of the Crows, not just in this game but throughout the course of the year, has been Darcy Fogarty's elevation. He kicked 3 goals in the last quarter, Fogarty, for 4 for the game in what was a match-winning performance.
They've had a tough year, Adelaide. But what they do is they fight with every game. They just lack class. But to see this guy, talking of class, I reckon he's got to get fitter. He's got to look at his body shape and lean up more so over the off-season. But it's great signs late in the year. And this kicking, if only he could get more of the footy, Damo, he could kick 60 goals next year if he can get himself
60,
that bit
yeah.
fitter. I think
he at least looks at home now, doesn't he? It's taken a while. He was taken high, and his first kick in the AFL was a goal from a long range. But he looks, I think, good right now.
Yeah, and as their midfield gets better, he's only going to get better himself.
Yeah. Sydney Swans, Lordo, mounting their own compelling case toward a premiership. Now, let's have a look at what they've done the past 5 weeks and how many times they've gone beyond 100 points in that streak. Now, you can question the opposition, but you can't question the manner with which they are playing to get those scores.
Yeah, look at what they did to the Dogs. The Dogs are a solid side. They destroyed the Dockers in Perth, and then they've beaten who they've had to beat. And I think they take care of Collingwood this week. That's not to say I've got great respect for Collingwood, and some will say you tip against them every week. But I think the Sydney Swans at the SCG, I'm backing them in. I sort of have them just about behind Geelong as nearly the most informed side.
I'm the same for what it's worth. So one player that we were hopeful from that nostalgic and fairy tale sense, Lotto, coming back for the Swans, Josh Kennedy, has pinged his supposedly good hamstring in the VFL, and it now seems unlikely he'll play a part in whatever lies ahead.
Yeah, he's not in their best 22, unfortunately, but congratulations. If he doesn't play again, congratulations on such a wonderful career for Josh Kennedy. Yeah.
Not many bright lights for North Melbourne in 2022, Lotto. Nick Larkey is again one of them, though. 7 goals against the Swans, and we've been talking about some of the opponents here in Tom McCartan and Dane Rampy as all-Australian players. He's a talent. Yeah, he competes hard, he leads well, he times it, he's a beautiful kick for goal. He kicked 36 for the year, and some would say, it's not a great year, but it's worth about 55, 60 in another team with what he's having to do at North Melbourne. Not many inside 50s. I watched what he did to Collingwood only a month ago. Ball hardly got in there that often, but it did in the first half, and you saw how good he would be. Then it dries up. He got hold of West Coast early in the year. Yeah, so he's a high-quality player. Needs some support there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
The Brave Player of the Week for Crypto.com this week is Ben Cunnington's return, Lordo. It came via the VFL at the famous Arden Street Oval, and he did what he normally does at AFL level, just getting his body back into the workings of football. 18 touches in this game. They've got matches remaining against Adelaide and Gold Coast. I'd imagine he'd be back in as soon as this week. Yeah, it'd be great to see it. Nothing to lose. I think it's more... I remember Curnow played a game late last year just for his own confidence. I think you do the same for Ben Cunnington. Play him, and then it's like gives him that taste for it for next season. Yeah, coming back from 2 bouts of cancer. Just the Crypto.com Brave Player of the Week. Richmond, Lotto, given their form of recent weeks, where it's been hard in mouth if you're a Tiger supporter, win, lose or draw. Commanding performance though against Port Adelaide. It was unusual because they controlled this game and ran away. As disappointing as the Port have been, they're hard to beat over there. But after half-time, they just put the foot down. And it was their forwards that did it. And we want to talk about the mix of their forward line. So you've got Tom Lynch, who kicked 4, Bolton 4, Cumberland 2. But Lynch now has 47 for the season. Cumberland, what a find he's been. 13 goals in 5 games. Revolt still contributing well. Rioli charging off half-back, kicking a couple. Yeah, they're looking dangerous. This danger component to Richmond, you've got him in the 8, I've got him in the 8. They're going to get there. We've been talking about it. If they get there, they're going to cause some drama. I reckon they still will. Yeah, well, they'll play potentially a Fremantle or a Carlton. They'll go 50-50 into any of those sides. Dion Prestia, Lordo, one of best and fairest in a premiership year in 2019, and arguably right now is as important as he's been since he played his first game for the Tigers back in that premiership streak beginning in 2017. Yeah, with no Dustin Martin, he's just, I won't say he's stepped up because he's always done that, but there's a lot of players not at their best. Like Trent Cotchin had a good game, but he's not his best. So Dion's at the top of his game. And he's sort of the barometer for them, arguably their most important player inside that midfield area. Yeah, he just steps up, and he plays hurt. He's been regularly banged up, but continually gets the job done, and his delivery actually has improved as his career's gone on. Similar to what Brisbane did, Lordo, the Dockers had a good game and again just breathed life back into their flag hopes. It came against the Bulldogs. And what was the most impressive aspect of this, Lordo, was the response to the challenge of the Bulldogs in the third quarter. Every time the Dogs did this in the third quarter, as in kick a goal, to bring that margin back down to below 4 goals, they responded.
Yeah, it was a good game of footy. So you see there, it's getting tight, 17 points. Within 30 seconds, Rory Lobb gets the footy, goes back. He just kicked the ball beautifully there on Saturday afternoon. So the Dogs challenge again. So the ball's over the top. Josh Bruce kicks his first goal of the season. It's getting tight again. Dockers on the road, but straight away they win a centre clearance. Young,
Nathan O'Driscoll, look at this.
Nathan O'Driscoll, yeah.
Not many can do this.
Oh, he straightened back up onto his long left foot and kicks that goal. But again, the Dogs challenge. But the belief of this side, who hasn't been in the best form the last couple of weeks, so the Dogs again through Dunkley, who's in good form, but the poise of Fremantle, didn't panic, over the top again within 30 seconds, found an answer. But just on the Dogs, they conceded 140 marks and 18 marks inside forward 50. We've highlighted this. They are a mess defensively.
You've been saying that the whole way through, haven't you? The Dockers this year, Lordo, they have now gone 5-1-1 when it comes to performances in Victoria. One of them, crucially, against Melbourne at the MCG, the others at Marvel Stadium and GMHBA Stadium. But that's a nice form line for them to bring back to Victoria for the September.
Yeah, and last year they couldn't win those games. It just shows how far they have come, the Fremantle Dogs. But they've got to be bolder with the ball in hand. I think the Western Bulldogs gave them those easy disposals, which other teams hadn't been giving them, like Melbourne in recent weeks. So I'm a little bit concerned about what damage they can do in the finals, but that was a really good, brave win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just back on the Dogs, Luke Beveridge, after round 17, talked about the future as much as the now. And the future is part of it. Sam Darcy had a great debut, I think, contextually. What do you see, though, for next year? 10-10 after the 20 completed matches this year. It's been a very, very poor year.
So they get good players in, say it's Liam Jones and Lobb, but that doesn't solve their issues about the way they're playing the game. Like, they're losing games, I think, off the back of coaching and system. So they can't defend. So if you throw Liam Jones in, Liam Jones was part of Carlton teams that were being opened up because the system was poor. Rory Lobb, he may help at times, but it's not going to help their defence. So, I think it's a structural thing that they've got to sort out over the off-season.
Yep. A club that has solved a lot of problems on the run this year, Lordo, has been Geelong, and a lot of problems came in the form of unavailability of key players. Paddy Dangerfield, a late withdrawal for their match against the Saints. But it just actually empowered even more so some of these lesser lights to continue doing what they're doing.
So the opposite to the Dogs, this is the team in total control of what they're doing. So Chris Scott sends them out there with total confidence that the players know their roles and not to panic, how they can work their way back into games, and once they get on top, they just obliterate you. So they go slow at times, they go fast at times, the backs know where to stand, everyone knows their position on the field and the role they need to execute and to play. They're a selfless group. We're going to talk about Melbourne shortly, who aren't so selfless and what they need to do. So, as I said, they're the best side in it, and they've been for 11 weeks.
OK, now let's have a look, Lordo. 2011, these two teams, Geelong and Collingwood, played off in the grand final after extraordinary seasons in the home and away part of it, where they were 1 or 2 on the ladder since round 2. Look at what these two clubs are doing this year. There's very similar storylines emerging from these two clubs.
Don't want to knock Collingwood's victories because it's so hard to win 11 in a row, but it's just the quality, the time spent in front. Geelong 78% compared to Collingwood's 47%. The way they're winning, 33 points compared to 10. It's more sustainable going into the finals, what Geelong is doing.
And being able to rest their key players. I mean, Selwood's been rested 3 times now, Lordo. Dangerfield had that chunk of time out to just get his body right, came out again. Mark Blitzov was out of the team for injury, but it's probably a management issue as much as anything. This is a luxury that very few clubs have get to play out.
Smart footy club. They are a very, very good footy club, and I hope Chris Scott can get a second premiership because I think he deserves it for how good a coach he's been.
Yep. OK, you've pumped up what Geelong's doing, and you forecast what you're about to say about Melbourne here, Lordo. Inside 50s were dominant for the Demons against Collingwood, but they just weren't able to make the most of it and capitalise on it.
I watched on Friday Night Live, and I saw a lot of times Melbourne players having a go at other Melbourne players for not giving the footy in. This is where it is. So they're on top, 18-6. Blasting the ball in, but you've got to look at Oliver and get it in to him, or the player in the pocket, but I'm saying Oliver in the central part. But they don't give it. They just blast to the top of the square. So I think it's part strategy and part selfishness at times. So there's Pickett. So should be used here. But Fritsch ends up marking this ball, so they get away with it. But they don't lower their eyes and make it easier for themselves to score. Their scoring dries up far too often. It's because of this. They're not thinking through situations. So that ball is onto Sparrow. Sparrow's running into an open goal, but where do they go? This has been a problem for them before they won the premiership. Last year, through weight of numbers and everything they were doing was fantastic. You know what? Pickett doesn't get used earlier, so now what he does? Well, I'll take a shot next time around. So that's what it breeds when you don't give off the first option and bring other players into it.
So what are you putting it down to? I mean, you mentioned the word selfishness. Is it, as I posed yesterday, is it hubris, Lordo? Have they just got way ahead of themselves and way too comfortable?
Well, and this is the opposite to it. What kept Collingwood in, the opposite of their efficiency going inside 50. Their efficiency won them the game the other night. But is it? I think it's on Simon Goodwin, number one, to sort this out because they do blast it. But at times I did see selfishness as well. So I think it's a combination of both, Damo.
And you love, alternatively, what Collingwood was doing.
Their efficiency, and you don't know where the ball's going. It's just smalls, mediums, all doing their thing.
Yep. We had differing views last week on Mark McVeigh's comments for a variety of different reasons, Lordo, but they responded to them, didn't they, with how they took apart Essendon.
Yeah, I was disappointed in some people who said Mark McVeigh may as well not interview for the job. I know that wasn't you, Damo, but said he may as well not interview because of his comments. I thought it was ridiculous because he knew his players had more to give and he wasn't going to let his season peter out. And they've got great respect for Mark. So whether he coaches next year or not, and
that's clear on what they produced this week after being told they checked out last week.
Yeah, and he had players texting him saying, we let you down, we let ourselves down, we did embarrass ourselves. So good on them. They responded. I'm wrapped for him. Jesse Hogan's in ripping form, but they know what they did. They targeted Merritt, Hind, Redmond, and the Bombers lost their way.
Lordo, prior to that match, Essendon had won 5 of their previous 7 games, and one of those was lost after the siren against Collingwood. I've been using the phrase fake wins. I reckon that's validated on the back of this poor performance. And in a weird way, that is almost the best thing that can happen to Essendon, so that they weren't going to finish the back half of the year content with what happened. Yeah,
they could have papered over the cracks going, actually, we finished well, we're not too bad, but I think a loss like that isn't a bad thing. Review hard with what's gone on at Essendon this
Hawthorn's
year.
held their season together really well. Jack Gunston's been a key part of it, Lordo. Played the 14 matches, kicked the 26 goals. Will he go around again next year? He's going to be 31 in October.
Oh, yeah, it's just a matter of... whether it's at Hawthorn or another club, but just on... You're talking Jack Gunston?
Yeah.
He's
when I asked that question, will it be at Hawthorn and should it be at Hawthorn? Because the last time we showed down-the-ground vision involving Sam Collins from the Suns, it was to praise Sam Collins for the role he played on Aaron Norton. You can't say that with what Jack Gunston did to him on the weekend.
Yeah, he's kicked 11 goals in his last 3 games, and he's got movement. Players are playing longer these days, and Collins couldn't cope with the movement of Jack Gunston, which is a great sign because Collins is a very good 1v1 defender. I'd keep him at Hawthorn, but also if you're the Brisbane Lions or Collingwood, you'd have to have a look at it. Even if you're the Melbourne Footy Club, Melbourne haven't got too many smart players down there.
The back injury that caused him to miss pretty much all of last year is not an issue, and he's one of the smartest footballers to have played in his time in the game.
And deadly in front of goals. So
if you're Hawthorn, you keep him and Luke Bruce. He's gone around at 2 goals a game too.
I would. The temptation for another club would be, hey, let's offer Jack Gunston 2 years, potentially 3, to see if we can prize him out of there. That's how valuable he could be for its side in the top 4 or 5 on the ladder.
Yep. Lordo, thanks as always for your time and access earlier. Stay with afl.com.au and the AFL Live app for all you need to know in the rundown to the finals of the 2022 season. We'll be back next week with more Access All Areas.